Stephen.
Andrew.
Do you fancy spending a quiet night inside number 9?
Absolutely.
We are heading into Series 7, Episode 5, A Random Act of Kindness, which was directed by Kieran J. Walsh, produced by Kim Crowther, and written by Steve Pemberton and Rhys Shearsmith. First aired on Wednesday, the 25th of May, 2022. Yeah. This was a fun one.
Time travel.
We've gone somewhere we've not been before.
We have.
And some when.
Yeah.
Got a synopsis?
Yeah, I can give a little synopsis.
Yeah. Go on then, mate.
An older man enters the life of a rowing son and mum. And it turns out that he knows them both better than any of them realised. Except it wasn't any of them, it was either of them. Because he knew.
Well done.
That was a, yeah.
And things are not what they seem. No, I think that about sums it up.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Within there somewhere was something that summed it up.
Yeah, there was. Definitely. Would you like to go back and do that again?
No, I don't. Because I think you should leave things alone.
If we've learned anything, things are left best. Left alone.
Things are left
best alone. Apart from the start of this episode.
Well, there's a whole timeline that exists out there somewhere where you put out all the episodes unedited.
Yeah, I wonder how that would have gone.
Our
lives would be very different.
Well, actually, pretty much exactly the same as when we did the live reactions.
True.
Apparently, we are banal.
Full of dead air. Yeah, thoroughly uninteresting.
That's what happens if you don't edit. So
that's what happens when you do edit.
That's the alternate. Case in point.
Yeah. So I mean, watching this for the first time, when did you see the sort of time travel narrative emerging? Or was it a surprise?
One little bit. I was glad when it did because I thought it was going down a different path.
Yes. It could. It seemed. I mean, I loved this episode. I think it was.
Me too.
Yeah, there was so many little threads that could have emerged into things like that. Just niggling thing of Bob knows Zach. They know each other.
From the initial walk in the door.
Yeah, there's like these weird glances going on, and is there something sinister from school? Is like what is?
I didn't like that. I did not like the feeling I was getting. The vibe I was getting was not a nice one. No, I'm glad it wasn't. It was really glad.
You seem familiar, and yes, because it's you. Which is like it's taken me down a whole thing of like just imagine meeting yourself in that way, and I really love that the interactions between the two Zachs. And like there is a little bit of antagonism, but there's also like when he tells the joke about the split
uranium-238,
yeah. And there's just a nice subtle like appreciation of that joke, and you can see the threads that will always be there as part of him as a character and the things he enjoys. It's lovely.
I think actually it might be worth starting with the character stuff. Because I think the Bob Bliss character, I think is a character that's created by Zach within the episode, with this the double letter tick and things like that. It seems that actually isn't there, and it's just something that he created. Because later on, when Zach reminds himself that he's just missed a double S. He's like, never mind that.
Forget that. Yeah.
That's all seemingly part of a little eccentric character that he's created for himself, to kind of not worm his way in, but get under the table.
And he very quickly sort of came up with the Bob Bliss. If that was from the barcode on the cereal packet, like he noticed that very subtly.
That was a weird thing. Because I don't know how many barcodes do spell names when turned upside down.
I like how it's Bob, and he didn't, when he announced his name, he didn't go for the double B double S, which was like, BS.
Bobless.
Yeah. And that standing for sort of bullshit as well.
That is true. My other thing with that initial one was, well, how else would you spell bliss? I didn't really understand why he said double S, as though it was just making sure she realised.
Yeah.
But then it turned out that, he's got his little tick with the double letters.
Mm-hmm.
Shall I? Oh, yeah. I'm Helen, by the way.
Oh, Bob. Bob Bliss, double S. At least we know his insides are functioning.
How? Oh, here. Ooh.
Thank you.
I think it was a repeat until funny, or repeat until funny, and then carry on through a really frustrating, stop doing that now, and then it becomes funny again. It's a good lesson in, no, keep going until it becomes funny for a second time.
It's his little OCD tick.
Yeah. Yeah, it's such a, time travel is an absolute sort of minefield. Like
Minefield.
A minefield. There's so much to mess your head up and think, that doesn't work. And then does that work?
I think it's one of those things that you always have to start with the premise of it doesn't work and it never will. Because if it had ever worked, we'd probably know by now somehow that it works. And so there will always be some way that they're going to have to do a bit of manipulation and maybe pull it round in a way that doesn't feel 100% right. And in this case, it was the Dr. Bran emailing himself a video from a different timeline. I was like, okay, I'll let you have it because you need something.
Yeah, because it's kind of like, at what point does the other timeline just cease existing? And I think they did it so well actually in this. And the question I had was like, at what point is Zach looking in the mirror thinking, maybe I am Bob? Like, because there's a chance that he really doesn't believe Bob, that he is him. He doesn't he obviously slides the time machine under his bed and he just gets rid of it. And I think he's being serious when he says that was just junk. I just got rid of it. Like, because he wouldn't have known how it worked or like what to do with it, because he didn't go down the line of becoming a physicist. It was, he became an oncological chemist. So that was not a part of his life.
I think what really got me was the second time. It was just the second watch that made me realize how bleak the ending was. That I didn't really quite get that until I watched it again and went, hold on a minute. That means none of that happens. That means she just goes to the doctor and they still have a fraught relationship.
Yeah.
And it's done. Because
the
he
whole
never makes it
episode
back.
has just been completely
wiped from existence.
It
never happened. And that's a really, really bleak. It felt like quite an uplifting end to the episode. It wasn't. I don't know what made it feel uplifting, because a bird died. But for some reason, there was part of me just thinking, I don't know whether I was still caught up in the fact that things had played out differently and he had stayed at home with his mum and he had devoted his life to saving her, and that was all really lovely. Until... And
then there's the question of, that has happened as well, like in its own time that has occurred.
So actually,
and then
does anything negative ever really matter?
That would be the question as a result of this episode.
Newton's first law states that an object in motion will remain in motion unless an external force imposes a change upon it. Similarly, an object at rest will remain at rest until an unbalanced force affects it. This is also known as the law of inertia.
A few nods to Back to the Future in this episode.
There were.
There's definitely
I've got a few of those written down.
One. Yeah.
What are yours?
Well, just the old skateboard right at the beginning.
Oh yeah.
Obviously a big part of Marty McFly's life. And then the gambling on the Grand National.
The almanac.
The almanac, yeah. And then the Helen trying it on with her son, not realising old Blob is her son.
Blob?
That's what she goes when she's been drinking the wine. Blob, Bob, Bob, Bliss. I like that. Blob. Hey, Blob.
Blob miss. So I didn't pick out the skateboard. Good spot.
Cheers, man. And that's why it's one of those episodes of Inside Number 9 that I really love, because everything is there in plain sight when you when you've got the lens of the end, you can see it all. When you rewatch, and it's kind of like, I love it when it works like that.
Initially, I felt like it was about to be another sort of kitchen sink drama. Again, like what was the episode?
Like Love's Great Adventure.
Love's Great Adventure. It felt like with the initial scene in the kitchen, just suburbia with a stroppy teenager.
Yeah.
And
even the name as well.
Around about.
This is going to be a feel good one.
One thing I wasn't 100% sure was the Newton's laws being dropped in through it. I know they kind of served a purpose, and I know they were kind of rooting things back in the sort of physics end of things, but I don't know how entirely necessary they were. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, they kind of gave us a nice definition between acts, I think.
Okay. First law was the object. I guess the object in motion thing was...
So it was inertia was the first one, wasn't it? Act one
yes.
was So if something's left alone, nothing happens unless a force acts upon it.
So it'll either keep traveling or it will stay stationary unless there's an imbalance in force.
Yeah, so I think there's little subtle ways that it's kind of relevant
woven
to.
In, okay.
Yeah, like the idea of time will go as it goes unless something kind of comes from the outside or comes from the future. And
I guess so their relationship was going to stay the way it did, and their future was going to stay the way it did unless someone came back from the future.
Yeah, and you see that. So maybe let's go through the kind of chronology of because that's what you're seeing. They're very strained and stagnant relationship.
Yeah, he is a dialed up stroppy teenager.
He is.
And I know there's a lot going on. I know there's stuff that's happened with the breakdown of family life at home, things like that, his dad moving away and having a new family. But he is really, really pushed. If I opened the fridge when I got home from school and there was hummus and olives waiting for me, I would be thrilled. So thrilled. You bought hummus and olives for me to snack on when I get home. That's amazing. Although I did always used to have a bowl of cereal when I got home.
Did you?
I did. I loved that.
Did you ever take your coat off before you?
Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I think I did. Yeah.
He was straight in there. I mean, yeah.
Straight in.
Didn't even take his jacket off. Open the fridge. Have we got any food? Yes. You're staring at it.
You've got great snack food. You've got the best snack food. Like a kettle chips.
Yeah, perfect.
I'd have been thrilled.
Custard creams.
You've bought it, so you've made it more relatable, less middle class.
Yeah, I'm just thinking back to mine. You're allowed 2 custard creams.
I'm not saying I
always snuck another 3 or 4. Yeah,
that's not what I had when I was younger. We didn't have olives and hummus, but now if I didn't really like olives, it's one of those things that I've come to love, but didn't really before.
I'm not a massive fan of olives, to be honest.
But no, we didn't have those in the house, but I would now be thrilled. That's a lot of Smack chat.
Yeah, but that's kind of where we start, isn't it? It sort of sets up that relationship, and you've got the tapping.
I love the
It's because that's very relatable. And that's often
the slow tapping as well. It's not even a speed typing tapping. It really accentuates quite how bad she is at typing.
Yeah. And I love that. The sort of you can disable clicks. I don't want to disable clicks. You disable clicks. I already have disabled clicks.
I imagine that conversation going on in their little writing office.
Yeah.
And Steve didn't know how to turn it off.
Yeah, one of them didn't. Yeah.
But decided to double down on it. That it was a choice. No, I do know how. I just don't want to.
Gives me a real sense that I'm actually using a tactile object rather than, I don't.
Oh, do you get like a haptic feedback? No, nothing at all. I just get a tapping noise.
Yeah.
You can turn that off,
Turn what off?
That stupid sound.
I like it. Makes up for not having a proper blooming keyboard.
What are you actually doing?
I'm booking a smear test, if you must know. Well, you asked.
It's giving me a migraine.
Don't exaggerate.
Just disable clicks.
I don't want to disable clicks. You disable clicks.
I have done.
Fine then.
And then the good old exaggeration of it's giving me a migraine.
Yeah.
It's not even just giving you a slight headache, is it? It's giving you a full-on migraine. I feel like the definition of migraine has expanded somewhat in recent times to a bit of a bad headache in some cases.
It has. Yeah, I think it has. I don't know. I've never had a migraine. So I don't know how it feels to experience that. But from people that genuinely have migraines...
They're bad ones.
I know it's...
like flashing lights and...
Yeah.
Crippling.
Sickness and... Yeah. It's not what some people call a migraine. That's for sure. And this is what... So we set up with Chekhov's smear test at this
point. That's the best Chekhov yet.
But it is. I think it is, isn't it?
It's Chekhov's smear test.
And then a conversation about results.
Yes.
Yeah, again, I think like script-wise, there's really, really clever scripting in a lot of this. Like even just that, like, talking about results, his results in his exams or his tests or whatever. And we're also talking about test results for her.
I think one thing that is quite interesting there is that if he's getting Bs, he's clearly not like out of this world incredible at this stage at physics. Like he's not just blitzing this day in, day out. It's something he's having to work at. And you wonder at what point is there potentially an intervention from himself somewhere else in a different timeline that pushed him down that path? And it all starts to get very confusing as to where did the push kind of originally happen that took him from a B grade physics student to an exemplary one.
So are you imagining that this time travel thing has happened a number of times in?
I feel like it. But then he must have got there himself at some. I don't know. I just don't know because
he has to have got there. But then he could have got there.
You can double back.
Yes, exactly.
But how did you get? Where's the pure, true, original timeline? Where's the?
Is there one? Can you get? Is there
an untouched?
I think once you bring time travel into it, there cannot be one pure timeline because there's always going to be an intervention at some point on that first one.
This is why it never works. This is why
because the first time that you time travel back to a point in your own past,
you're having an influence on that
on the pure
I guess
timeline.
that's the thing with Back to the Future, with fading photographs of people, because you interfere with it and you interfere with what was going to pan out. So maybe he did go, but there must be a point where he did go through and become this incredible physicist who invented time travel. But I guess time isn't linear anymore, and so it doesn't have to follow those rules.
Yeah, and he did it with Rudolph at that point as well. So
I didn't even know that was Rudolph until I found it on IMDb. Rudolph Brann.
Yeah. I didn't know. I had it as Reese Brann in my notes until you said his name's Rudolph.
I think there is a danger here that we spend 2 hours just looping round.
And this conversation has been had on many occasions by other people.
And I don't think it ever resulted in anything sensible.
No, and I don't think that's the merit of this episode.
Okay.
I think it works as a time travel thing in as good a way as any time travel thing ever works. But there are other things that work really, really well, storyline wise and character wise.
Yes,
that I think it would be good.
That wasn't a critique on the story at all. It was I'm just confused.
Yes,
by anything
you
related.
Always are.
To travel.
Like it's impossible not to be.
I'm not always confused.
You're always confused.
You always are. Every week we tune in, and I have no idea what's going on. I enjoyed her little attempt at age-appropriate chat. Let's cut this beef, bro.
Yeah. No one says beef anymore.
I don't think you'd say cut the beef either, would you? It's more squash the beef, isn't it?
I honestly don't know.
I think you squash beef. I don't think you cut beef.
What does that mean?
If you're beefing with someone, it means that you've got like an issue with them.
An issue.
Where's the beef?
Okay. So cut the beef would be, come on, let's
get rid of the beef, I guess.
Let's get rid of
squash the beef would be together, pushing it down, getting rid.
Yeah. So this is where we're sort of finding out that there's been a recent divorce, or dad's walked out, left the family, gone and started a new family.
Singapore.
And there's a nice level of ambiguity about what went on there, because Helen takes some responsibility for that and for how it went, for the way it all played out. But yeah, there's a lot of harsh words from Zach in this.
He's clearly an angry boy.
Yeah. And a nice little nod to the time travel thing from Helen of, if I could go back and do things differently, I would. It's those little lines that just sort of, peppered through the episode where you're like, oh, that's nice.
And then we kind of hit our scene where it all kicks into gear and also ends. Yeah. I like the fact that he goes upstairs, sits down on his laptop, and is just clicking away with no issue whatsoever about that.
Quiet typing. Yeah.
Click, 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 click. No migraines here. Funny that, isn't it?
And then a bird doesn't smash the window, hits the window, smashes its head.
It'd be a very different story if it smashed through the window.
And then we get the coffee knocking over.
Yeah, I didn't, because on the first watch, I did think it went over with very little knock, but I'm not really sure with how that ties in with things later.
No, because there's a
unless it's just
parallel, isn't there, of the coffee going over? There's the coffee at the beginning where it's in motion, swirling around and round, and so whether that's a nod to the law of inertia, and then the coffee going over is like that's. I think smashed.
You have a little bit of a nod later when we see that they knock a coffee over in the exact same way, as almost like not literally, but things that are going on there are having an effect on what's happening now. I think that's kind of all that is like a little visual tie.
Sort of like a metaphor rather than an actual thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it wouldn't make any sense for them to be literally having a physical impact on
the
future like that. That's not how time travel works. That's just not how it works, as we know.
As we know it.
As we are, because we are experts in time. Like by now, future me would have come back and explained to me how time travel works if it was ever going to happen.
Yeah. And it would have also come back and said, stop your podcast. This doesn't end well. As it is, we're carrying on at the moment.
Oh, yes. I found this little double T bird just outside your house.
Right.
They fly towards the reflections in the windows, unfortunately.
Oh, dear.
And then we meet the feet of Bob the feet arrive by the bird.
With his dad trainers on.
Very dad trainers.
Did you?
I thought this is definitely Steve. I don't know why I was like, this is Steve.
Steve's up.
Even when, and then the hands appeared, I was like, yeah, I think they're Steve's hands.
Also, we get the foreshadowing of her bad back.
Mm-hmm.
She's wincing in pain as she leans over to tidy up the coffee mess.
Yeah.
Something is not right spinally.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Bob arrives.
With his little bird.
Little bird.
Double T.
Double T bird. Yeah, I love that. I don't know how long it took for me to realise that was what he was doing. It took a little while.
Same. That's like I said with the Bob Bliss double S. I don't think I even clocked the first two. I didn't clock the double T on the little bird or the double L on the small box. I clocked the double S on the Bliss, but only because I thought, how else would you spell it? And then,
but then that's like a normal thing to say how you spell like it. How I would, for some reason,
someone asked
I think
how you spell Mort with an E.
No, just as it comes. That was a real life interaction at a hotel in Swansea. Where I think because like I grew up, my parents would always spell it. You know, like you'd hear them on the phone and be like, "Yeah, what's your name? Mort, M-O-R-T." That would always be like every single time. Mort,
because your dad wasn't Louis Boa-Morte.
But yeah, so I was always like, no, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to do that.
It's just a bit cliched, isn't it? No.
We were in this hotel in Swansea, and I said, Andy Mort. He's like, is that with an E? It's like, no, just as it comes. Which he didn't question. I think he got it.
Which is lucky because no one else, including you, did.
Anyway, and speaking of E, that was the thing I noticed. I can't remember the word it was, but when he was talking to Zach for the first time, he was like, double E. And teenager double E. It made me think he's talking about something physics related, like an equation or something.
Yeah.
And then it was only probably another 2 or 3 times that he did it. And it was like, oh no, he's just, anytime there's a word with a double letter in it, he's saying
He's just saying it.
Right. And then I think they had the conversation at the dinner table where Helen asks about it at the right time, because by that moment, you've kind of cottoned on to the fact that it is just some sort of quirk.
And I guess it's the sort of quirk that I don't know whether you would avoid sort of addressing it directly, because it might come across as a bit insensitive. If it's like a tick that he can't help to suddenly go, why are you doing that thing where you repeat every double letter you say?
Yeah.
That's a bit weird. That would seem harsh, but I guess once she's had a couple of glasses of red at dinner time, she's a bit more open to just breaking social conventions, including hitting on our own son.
Yeah. And so Bob comes into the house, and Zach's sort of like peering down the stairs, as we said. This is a moment where it's like this really weird exchange where you're thinking they're at least familiar with one another at some level. So this feels a little bit, and it feels eerie. It doesn't feel.
It did a bit, yeah.
You're kind of thinking, have they, or maybe have they encountered each other like in a shop? Has something happened somewhere where they've met each other once? Or something?
It was a knowing look.
Yeah,
it was we have interacted with each other before somehow, and that was what made it feel a bit creepy.
Yeah. That's like, and on rewatch, that's very, very well done. Like, very good setup for what, because it is that I think that is exactly what you'd like. You would have that experience if you met a different version of yourself. There would be I know you from somewhere. Like, it would just be so weird. Yeah. And then, so you have the conversation about maths and physics and chemistry, like the fact it's nice, good character development of, okay, so Bob is a PhD at Cambridge in physics.
Tough set of A-levels, those.
Very tough set of A-levels. No one wants to be doing that. Do they? I don't.
They're a good... I mean, I teach one of them. But yeah, that is a tough set.
Yeah, very
tough. I also quit one of them.
Did you? At A-level?
Yeah, I didn't carry on physics. Physics was tough.
It gets hard at that level.
Because I did 4 full A-levels. So it was my 5th one. I was like, no, I can't. Wow. I can't do 5 with physics. I regret it.
And with your work ethic as well.
And with my work ethic.
It's a bad combination.
Like, how long has this podcast been going?
No, I'm keeping this going.
But no, I regret not taking physics, because it's one of those things that I do sort of engage in recreationally now, and I read about now.
And it is very cool.
It is cool. Yeah. It is cool. It's on Vogue.
It is very much so. Yeah. Yeah. And then, so we get the phone call that is ignored. And I'm wondering, like, okay, on rewatch, 40 years time, is this a mobile phone from the future? Are they his shoes from the future? Because things aren't really going in a great direction, are they?
They kind of... maybe they found that old Nokia phones are the only things that travel well through time, as well as ASICS trainers. I think that's it. Nokia brick phones and ASICS trainers are the only things that can cope with the demands of time travel.
So these brands, massively utilitarian, great, solid.
I think so.
I would imagine like high tech maybe be worth
high
trying.
Tech. Yeah.
Peter Storm, if you're looking for a nice solid fleece. Yeah, I'd love to hear any other suggestions for solid brands that travel through time.
Time traveling. Imagine if in the first Terminator film, Arnold Schwarzenegger had turned up.
I want
wearing a Peter Storm jacket.
Fleece. your
Skechers.
Yeah.
And I don't know where my accent just went then.
And a Nokia.
Aren't you even going to say hi?
Hi. Jinx. Oh, you meant him say hi to me. Apologies. Zach, you can speak now.
I know I can. I'm not 8 years old.
Yeah, and then we discover the bird is alive and well, just flying around the lounge.
It is. It made a miraculous recovery. More resilient than I would have expected from a smash into a window like that.
Yeah. And then there's a little nice Jinx exchange.
I was wondering, like, how out of touch is this man has decided to try and play Jinx with this angry teenage boy.
Well, it makes you think maybe he liked it because you get the uranium-238 nucleus joke in a second.
A little more highbrow than Jinx.
Yeah, but it suggests that if Jinx appeals to him as a 60-year-old man, then I don't know. I mean,
maybe he used to like it when he was really little.
Yeah, you grow out of things and then grow back into things, don't you, through life?
Like olives. No, you grow out of olives in the first place.
Custard creams.
Custard cream. No, they never went away. Squash. Adults can drink squash.
They can.
I bought a bottle of squash the other day. You know why? Because I don't enjoy water enough.
Don't you? No, I think I certainly early 20s. I had a bit of an existential crisis around whether or not it's okay to drink squash. It didn't feel like it felt like a childish thing at that point. And then as I've got older, it's like, no, adults do drink squash.
Of course.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's great.
Because I was like, do you have to sort of upgrade to cordial? Is that more of an adult thing?
It's the same thing.
Just a different word for the same thing.
It is different words for the same thing.
Yeah. Pretentious
words.
Squash.
Squash this, squash talk. Right.
Yeah, and that's quite a niche. I don't think really I remember talking about that to Americans. They didn't have any clue what I was talking about when I was talking about squash. Thought I was talking about butternuts.
Grown-ups like butternut squash. Kids less so.
Yeah, ironic. Yeah, so they agree that Blob is going to do some tutoring because he got a bit spare time at the moment. He does have spare time.
There was a little it's all relative line dropped in.
Yeah.
While they were talking about Cambridge, wasn't there? Another one of those little hiding in plain sight.
Yeah. So it's all set up for a bit of tutoring. And yeah, again, you're thinking here, because Zach agrees to it, so there can't be anything too... Because if there was a real problem between them, if they'd met before and this was an issue, I think Zach is of a mind...
This isn't a hair lip scenario going on here.
No. I think he would make it known. I think he's sort of angry and confident enough to say no.
Yeah, and I think also there's this begrudging acceptance of help from his mum.
Yeah.
Because he does want to be better. He does want to be an exceptional physicist, which he currently isn't. And he needs himself to get him there.
Yeah, that's what, it is interesting that, yeah, he doesn't just completely write off any assistance from his mum.
No. And there are little, it's like, it seems as though it's kind of recognized that he is a bit of a mood swinging teenager, because there are times when it says that he tries to talk to her and all of this kind of stuff. And there are little exchanges between them to suggest that things are all right now and again.
Yeah.
It's just that his default mode is angry young man.
Yeah.
But he does want to go to university and he does want...
He's got ambitions.
Succeed.
Yeah.
Newton's second law of motion, in its simplest form, can be expressed by the equation F equals ma, or force equals mass times acceleration. It's why this car, which has a greater mass, will travel less far than this car when identical force is applied.
So then we go to Act 2.
Newton's second law.
Newton's second law.
So yeah, this was one that I didn't really... Because the first one, you're right. The first one, it's quite tight in terms of the inertia, and the whole point of the random act of kindness thing is that someone does something, it has an effect.
Yeah.
And that
Changes
is
the course of things.
And that is Newton's first law. Yeah. Whereas this one just shoved a big truck in a little car.
So yeah, and then you get the 62 on the... Remember to put the date. First
Should we
lesson.
put the date on there?
Put the date on.
Why? Why? You don't need to put. There's literally the one thing you don't need to write on the front of that exam paper is what the date is. It's already there.
So you put 62 and you're thinking, oh, he must have
1962.
born in 1962.
No.
Yeah. And then what outside forces are acting on you right now? Gravity, the earth spinning, you.
And that's interesting because he's not an outside force. He's an internal force, isn't he, really?
Internal force from an outside time. Yeah, weird. And there's that, yeah. And the harder you're pushed, the further you can travel. Yes. What's the significance of that line?
Well, I guess like he's trying to set him up to achieve big things,
Mm-hmm.
and he's trying to give him this push. But he also, I think, feels that in order to like become the best version of himself, he needs to know what's going on with his mum. He needs to make sure that he's fulfilled in that relationship. And actually, I guess he's actually doing a selfless thing here. He's sacrificing what future self does. I mean, Rudolph aside, he is basically writing off his own future existence in that way. The moment that he tells him that he needs to make things right with his mum, like he's deciding to make a judgment call on what he ended up achieving in his future, and he's making a choice at a crossroads, but from the future perspective, which I guess would be a really nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
I'm sure. I guess he has to shoot himself in the head and die in that timeline in a particularly gruesome way.
Yeah, but he has lived a life and succeeded, and yeah. Although he's been haunted by his attitude,
never quite being right with his mum. Yeah,
and this sort of scene ends with him. It's almost like he's about to tell him about all of this, and then there's the call that dinner's ready.
Mm-hmm. But that was the thing. That was that. Without knowing this at this point, is this when there's these conversations about giving him a push to make him go further and all of these things, it's still got creepy vibes for me. It's still got this weird relationship between the two and that's starting to develop, and it doesn't feel quite right.
Yeah,
and it's something's interrupted by dinner, and I'm kind of glad it is.
Definitely, yeah.
That must be hard. For you and for your mother.
I don't have a problem with it. She's the one that's fucking mental.
That's a strong word to use.
You don't have to live with her.
Zach.
Dinner's ready!
Yeah.
Because he's also kind of trying to get him to open up about the difficulties in his relationship with his mum and his dad and all those kind of things.
So we talk about the tattoo as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Just to kind of piss mum off as she hasn't noticed. And and then it's kind of, that's where, like she cares deeply because young Zach is like, she's fucking mental. That's a strong word to use.
Which one?
Yes, I know. I thought, which word is?
There's a couple of choice words in there.
And then you don't have to live with her. Well, he did.
He did. He knows exactly what it was like.
Yeah.
But it's almost like he's taking opportunity to engage in like some self-counseling. Like he's finally found someone that will listen to him. It's just him from the future. Like he's giving him a chance to say what he wants to say. Like when he's pushing him with like, it must be hard. It must be difficult with all these things going on.
Yeah.
He's like he's giving himself someone to listen to, which is quite a nice thing to do, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But and that's where it's like the altering of the timeline, even in those exchanges. It's like never encounter yourself. It's such a dangerous thing to do.
I imagine so. Well, I guess we'll never know how this. But there must be like a series of events that plays out when someone comes back, that the interaction happens and it leads to something better happening.
Well, you'd have thought so. Unless it's a similar thing to like the Tempting Fate stuff where you can never have a wish that is fulfilled in a positive way. You can never have...
Maybe.
Even the worst events that happen are better than the potential events that would happen if you tried to make them better.
Like in The Simpsons, where they go back and step on the bug in prehistoric times and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Time travel's been done very well, hasn't it? It's been well done.
So then we go to dinner. Bob really doesn't want any wine.
No, he doesn't want to drink with his mum.
Very adamant about that. That's either a
future problem with it,
or the problem that he's seen his mum have with it, or he just has maybe done this timeline before and had some wine and it went down a line with his mum that he really regrets.
I like the idea that this is like attempt 7, and on the previous 6 attempts he's ended up sleeping with his own mum. It just keeps happening. One thing leads to another, but he wakes up the next morning again and goes, clicks his fingers back again.
What can I do differently? No wine.
I've narrowed it down to it being the wine.
Yeah.
Just that, like the scene from the gasp thing from 9 Lives Cat happening over and over again with Steve Pemberton waking up next to Jessica Hines. And again, let's go again.
Try again. Get back. Climb in my time machine. Yeah. And then he talks about the homework of the Grand National, using physics to pick the winner as opposed to just plain old knowledge due to time travel.
It's not gambling if you know who's going to win.
Again, great. But first time you're watching it, you think, oh no, he does have a system.
He does, yeah. Using time travel for nefarious means. Why is he still in those trainers?
Yeah, exactly.
He could have won so much money. Like so Biff in his almanac. He could be Biff with the almanac.
Yeah.
He could be living in a horrible dystopian
Trump Tower
hellhole. Yeah.
This then, when Helen asks about what he does with his time, and he's a bookkeeper,
not an egg batterer,
and that's she's very quick with that.
No, she's not. She's been thinking of that since the moment she heard him with the double letters earlier on, days ago.
What would get me pissed?
G
double
and
G and T.
Double G and T.
Very good. Very clever. I like that when she says to Zach about, it's called conversation, when he's kind of getting embarrassed, like, listen and learn.
She's picking on some guy for an OCD tick.
This is how to have a conversation.
Watch and learn, my boy. This is...
So it turns out it's not a great conversation because Zach storms off, calling him pathetic.
She gives us a really strong reason as to why she likes the keyboard clicks.
Yes.
They give her a sense of Zen-centered calm.
Yeah. When everything feels like it's unraveling, my clicks hold me together.
And again, Zach ends up being mediator between his mum and himself. Again, Zach isn't a monster. He's an angry young man. And then, we get more Back to the Future vibes with Helen taking off her glasses and holding the hand.
Yes.
Calvin Klein.
Yeah.
Would Calvin Klein's time travel well? Apparently they do. As we know from Back to the Future, they do.
I think that's been proven. So,
that and gilets. Maybe that gilet in Back to the Future was Peter
Storm gilet. Yeah. And a great little line of, I best be off. Thanks for dinner. Double N, double F off.
A force is a push or a pull that acts upon an object as a result of its interaction with another object. These forces are subject to Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction.
And then we hit Act 3. So Newton's third law of motion. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
And I guess this is a respinning of the idea that if something is, and that not that Newton was respinning the same thing, but the episodes using it in a similar way to say that, right, someone's done something, there's going to be an effect somewhere else.
Yeah. There's a great cut here from the pendulum balls.
Newton's cradle.
Yeah, to the clicking of the typing again. Yeah, and there's the bird at the window. Is that the future bird?
It sounds like future. Well, it sounds like a future bird that we see was sent through, which is the one that hit the window. I take it.
And it's just like, where am I? What am I doing?
But it seems like he's having a nice time. When
am I? This is where she notices the
upside down bobliss.
And I almost feel like that was a deliberate stretch as from Stephen Rees in the writing of like, that's one of those things that you see in, I suppose you see it in like detective things and stuff, don't you? Where someone notices something that's really so subtle,
yeah,
and so beyond the realm.
Well, he clearly had a plan in mind, so I would find it odd if he had walked in and gone, "Oh shit,
Kaiser Soze.
Bobliss, hang on a minute." Yeah, wasn't sure about that.
No, I think that was a deliberate
stretch,
being silly. Yeah.
And then she receives her phone call inviting her in for her appointment. Chekhov's smear test is
coming home to roost. And then, yeah, that sort of the blurry, you just feel that sort of,
she knows what's coming.
Panic of, yeah, this is my worst fears, because it's sudden, and I think that the kind of her holding her back earlier on and everything is like, yeah, this smear test that she's booked she's booking the test after she knows something is already
probably
wrong.
A bit late.
Very late, yeah.
It's important to get your smear tests regularly.
Yes. And then Zach returns.
The horse has come in.
With the opposite sort of, kind of all excited because the horse has come in. £60. Why only £60 at 33 to 1? For
well, what is he doing?
You know is guaranteed to win.
Come on, Bob. Otherwise it gets, well, I guess suspicious. Irregular betting patterns.
Yeah. You must be from the future.
You got me. Fair cop.
So half of the £2,000 going to give him for his uni fund.
He could have just, why didn't he put 120 on? They could have each.
I like that. I like how understated that is. It's just nice.
I like that. Yeah, he's giving me half.
Yeah.
I picked it. I picked the winner. Why am I only getting half? What sort of racket is Bob running?
Hey, well, guess what? You know, Bob put a bet on the Grand National on Saturday. Well, his horse only won. He put 60 quid on at 33 to 1.
Sorry?
Bob won nearly £2,000. And he said he's going to give me half of it for my uni fund.
I don't want him coming round here anymore.
What?
And you're not to take that money. Do you hear?
Yeah, and then Helen just says you can't see him again. Like everything's...
Yeah, like she's really... Yeah, she was very unnerved by the Bob Bliss barcode.
Yeah.
In conjunction with the other stuff that's going on in her head right now.
Just feeling like, yeah, he's come into my life in a very strange way. We don't know who he is or where he's come from.
But there is another little glimpse into sort of a happier relationship between Zach and his mum. And I don't know whether this is already just a bit of an effect of Bob kind of trying to introduce a bit of empathy towards both of them in the conversations he's had with them, where he's just said to both of them, look, she's not fucking mental, he's not a monster, and whether they are getting each other a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's why Zach feels really let down when she suddenly turns fucking mental again.
Yeah. And then, yeah, the slap was a bit of a shock.
It was. For all of us.
Yeah. I wrote down, we're all tired, we're all upset.
Dig back into the highlight reel again there. If I could go back in time, I would still say that.
And then Helen disappears, goes to the doctor, leaves the whole thing up in the air.
There was that horrible thing of she knows that she needs to go and deal with that, but also she does have this incredibly awful but important thing that she does need to go to.
Sort of weighing up.
And she can't go and,
I've got some cash for you from the GG's double G.
I'm not allowed to take it.
Why not? Have you had another row with your mum? Maybe I shouldn't have interfered. Yeah, what are these? Yellow roses, double O.
Those are her favourites. Have you been stalking us?
Do you want to put them into water?
Enter Bob with a bunch of yellow roses.
strange favourite flower for me.
And a strange thing to bring, given that conversation has not happened. So it is like, mate, there are now red flags flying.
Yeah. There's more red flags flying here than a socialist workers' conference.
Yeah. So he's got the cash from the GGs, double G. Are there any double E's in GGs?
Yeah, I thought GGs was spelled G-double-E-G-double-E.
That's what I thought, but yeah, maybe it's not. Maybe it is just GG.
What does it stand for? I assume it's ground gas solutions. No, that's not.
There you
what. See, I thought it was the GGs. Well, I mean, just saying this.
BGs are B.
They're B-double-E-G-double-Es.
Yes.
And the GGs are G-double-E-G-double-Es.
Yeah. So there you go.
So he's got it wrong.
Yeah, he's got that one wrong.
It should be GGs, double-E-double-E, double-double-E.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Zach here has respected his mum enough to say he's not allowed to take the money.
Yeah.
There's something quite nice about the fact he's I'm not allowed to take it. And then you have Bob kind of reflecting on like, maybe I shouldn't have interfered here. And I think there's a genuine sense of like, oh, am I getting this wrong? Should I not have done this? Yeah.
Click. Back we go again, number 8.
And then, the yellow roses, her favourite. How does he know? Like, have you been stalking us? And Bob's look when he's been questioned there as well is like, you think he has been. Like, what is, like, the first time you're watching this, you're like, what is this guy?
What's he doing?
What is this about? And I love the scene of the roses just getting smashed up and the stalks handed back to it.
He really goes for it.
Yeah. It was like just a beautiful set of stalks just presented back to Bob. And then his okay at this point gives an impression that, like, I am out of my depth. Like, what have I think
I now need to deal with this.
I have
know
messed
what I
this
need
time.
to say.
Like, I've got to go and just be honest and go and put the bag under his bed, and so to speak.
There are many things you could have said that would have probably deserved a so to speak more so than that.
We went in, put a bag under his bed, if you know what I mean. Yeah, literally, just put a bag under his bed.
Yep.
And then talked about the Doppler effect.
Insert physics chat.
But that then gives him the entry into talking about, you think about what you'd have done differently, because time flies when you're older. What would you say to yourself if you go back 40 years to when you were a boy? And this is the big reveal. So,
and not the big reveal we were all worried about. Still, though, he came in and he closed the door behind himself and approached the teenage boy who was lying on the bed. Which was still a bit like,
probably turns out to be just a force of habit. He's just gone into his bedroom,
shut
the door after himself, like as he would every night. Yeah. But yeah, very much so. You're thinking, this is not okay for this relationship. Like,
No.
this is not very professional tutorage.
Tutorage?
Tutelage? I don't know. You would know.
Tutoring. Tutoring.
Tutor behaviour.
Tutor behaviour.
Yeah, and this is, as you said earlier, where he says sort of harness the power of black holes and doesn't do his double S.
And Zach corrects him.
And Zach is already like into the patterns of that. Like he's already listening out for that. He's you know, and maybe this is like this was the encounter that sent him down that OCD.
Stop it. Because then how did that happen in the first note?
Yeah. And it turns out you got the physics right. And time travel becomes a thing because of something that he does.
So he's come back from 2062.
2062. Tattoo match. Though, like, if I was Zach, I'd be thinking, well, it would be more credible if you hadn't seen my tattoo and you revealed your tattoo.
Because you can always go away and get a tattoo done in a few days.
You know what that looks like. You could get that done. You could even just draw it on and make it look like a tattoo.
I'd love it if you cut to Bob at his dining room table with a marker, a little Sharpie. Is it also on which arm's it on? I'd like it if it was on his right arm and he was struggling to do it with his left hand.
Yeah. You get the weird telling of the tale of what will happen. By the time you go to Singapore, you'll have stopped speaking and that'll be too late. You'll regret it for the rest of your life. Your own kids will walk away. You'll understand too late how much she gave up for you.
The guilt will cripple you.
And this is when Helen returns, pouring wine, crying in the kitchen.
Always.
Notices the flowers on the floor. And the phone rings.
Hello?
Zach, can you hear me? What the fuck do you think you're doing?
Zach's my son. Who is this, please?
God, please, Mrs. Wilson, try to stay calm. I think your son could be in grave danger. The man whose phone this is, he's not to be trusted, you understand?
Do you mean Bob?
You mustn't leave your son alone with him.
But he's... Zach?
Mrs. Wilson, let
Zachary!
me speak to him.
Well, that phone call is an entirely selfish phone call, isn't it? That's his panicked phone call that he knows Zach's just headed back to go and have an impact on the future, which may screw up him.
Yeah.
He's like the fading photograph at the moment.
Because
he knows what's about to happen. Is the only person that's really in danger at this point is Rudolph Brann and the money that he makes.
But potentially...
all of existence.
Yeah, and potentially Rudolph's, family that he makes as a result of the life that happened on that timeline.
But that just never happened.
Might kill his kids.
Kill his kids.
He might have kids that won't exist because Zach saved his mum.
But he won't know that in that timeline.
Nobody will know it if he's got kids at the moment and then he thinks, Zach, I never meet Zach.
But he wouldn't have known that. I think that ethically, like a morality and ethics point of view, if you know something happens, if you don't go back and do something, is different to what you're doing impacting future events. I think going back to sort past events in order to deal with things that...
It's just a really bad idea to invent a time machine. Like it was,
and that's why no one's done it.
Stupid thing to do
because people just don't do it because they think of things like that.
I think if it was possible, people would do it because there are idiots who don't think about the implications.
Of course they would.
Just because you can doesn't mean you should. Yeah,
consequences. I think the existence of dinosaurs with us now has really shown us that.
Yeah,
but what he says is a bit weird, saying that your son isn't safe with him. Like, there's no reason to suggest that because he knows full well that the son is him. What is he thinking that he's going to have gone back to kill his younger self, but then he wouldn't then exist in the future?
No, and it wouldn't make any difference to his mum It would just make his mum's life even worse.
Yeah, I don't really know what
I've just gone and killed your
danger
son,
is.
and you're dying. So
Everyone's dead, so
have a nice life. What's left of it?
salutes and then disappears off into some sort of wormhole.
Yeah. I suppose this scene is a nice dramatic one.
Needlessly brutal, I feel.
The last thing we've seen is Bob pointing the gun at Zach.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the gunshot.
And then the gunshot runs up.
Turns out
and
Bob's
there's
brains are all over the wall.
Not on a crossword this time, though.
No. And then we see everything okay because...
Well, they've had a shared traumatic experience.
Everything's going to be okay.
Maybe that's why he had to do that. Him killing himself like that brought him and his mum closer together.
Are you all right? Oh, it's okay. It's all right. It's okay.
I love you, Mum.
I love you too. I love you so much.
Everything's gonna be okay. I promise. Everything's gonna be okay.
He kills himself on that timeline, but he doesn't kill himself.
I've told you, there's a lack of consequences that comes from this. Knowing that there are infinite timelines means that you can do literally anything you like, knowing that it'll make no difference on some other plane of existence.
Because then Zach goes down on a different timeline that never ends up with that happening. He doesn't do that. He doesn't need to do that because his mum lives to 93, as we see in Act 4, which starts now. Although the end of Act 3, we pan down to the bag under the bed, which I think at this stage, were you still wondering what's in the bag? Yeah, because we find out, or we have it confirmed that it's the time machine.
Yes.
Very portable.
It is, remarkably so.
And so Act 4, we enter the kitchen that has had a bit of a makeover. Yeah, the cooker hood. This is the thing that impresses me. The cooker hood is the same. So 40,
that is the optimum design.
40 years on, I'm like...
We've reached peak.
Who's the manufacturer of this cooker hood? Because that has lasted.
And there's been no need to upgrade it.
Yeah, exactly.
I am glad that it seems that digital photo frames are the future.
So here we are. Yeah, same house, no character is what I wrote down.
You very much you zone in on houses that lack character, don't you?
Yeah, it is
you
like
hate them.
Quiet Night In. So we've just entered a space that has been removed of all of its sense of humanity and character. That's the future.
That's the future.
And even
it's a future. I think you need to realize.
That's true. It's one future, and Zach is also very much looking like a future person who.
Future person.
Well, like his outfit and everything is just there's no character there. Like
no
character is being sucked out of everybody. Yeah, and so then Zach and Rudolph meet. Talk about a lovely service. Mum's funeral went on a bit like her.
She's now a little bit of a celebrity, isn't she? Because she was, I guess, like the big success story of this pioneering cancer treatment that Zach invented when he chose to go on that path after his encounter with himself.
Yes, indeed. Here's another nod to Back to the Future with the coffee. It's a bit like the pizza in Back to the Future 2. It's Back to the Future 2 where they put the little
pizza. It's
like a little tiny, I can't remember exactly what goes into the microwave, but then it comes out as like a
full I remember,
steaming pizza. And the coffee has a similar journey.
Sorry, can I offer you a drink?
I'll have a coffee, please, yes.
So my daughters were telling me you have a YouTube channel.
Yes. I do little science videos for children.
Yeah, and so we hear about sort of Rudolph's alternative life, which he's just become a Yuku celebrity, essentially. A Yukuer. Making science videos for children.
Dr. Brown, the science man.
What looked to interview Zach's mother after the anti-cancer serum.
Fine. So it only took him 7 years, if this was supposed to be present day, to get to the stage where he had a fully functional cure for probably all cancer.
I suppose he had to work fast, to save his mum. And then I love Reese in that science clip. And is this when you have the Time magazine as well, don't you? In this nice little Time magazine.
Time,
very good.
What's in the video clip? The clip of himself. Oh, when they were throwing the bird through
that's
things.
It. Yeah. And they're celebrating together, and
that's our little nod to where the bird comes from.
Yeah.
So why did they send it back to? What must have been the relevance of that time when they decided that was where they were going to open up their little wormhole to? That's
a good question.
Did he do that on purpose?
Was that Zach's?
Was that playing on him all the way through this, that he was regretting the decision that he had made to go into time travel, and so the first thing he was going to do once he knew it worked was go back and stop it and go and send himself on a different path? So this is the guilt has consumed him to the point where once he finally reached his most incredible achievement, he was going to go back and undo it because it was the wrong one.
So he's in control of where, the point in the past that they sent the bird back to.
And he knew that he was going to get to that point as well.
Yeah.
Because he can do that later, because this is all non-linear, so he can carry on existing in that timeline for a while longer until it's ready to start sending human beings through. And he can go back to the same point when the bird hits the window, and that can be his into the house.
Yeah. Nice.
It's a weird plan. I'm going to send a bird through. It's going to hit a window. I'm going to pick up the bird. I'm going to use this as a way of wooing myself into my own house.
I know there's definitely going to be an injured bird at that point.
I know, because I threw it there. Yeah. How can I leverage this bird? So he decided to focus on biological chemistry, which cheated Rudolph out of a career.
Or a particular career. I mean, he's had a pretty good career.
He's Dr. Bran, the science man.
I don't know what he's complaining about, to be honest. Everyone wants to be a YouTuber nowadays.
They do.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, I guess there's that little niggling thing of the fact that Zach thought that he wasn't even necessarily a real doctor, and he was just an actor in a white coat.
Yes, that's true.
That, I imagine, is what is irritating him most.
Yeah, and then we find out, he's been clearing out his spam folder, found the video he'd emailed to himself. Yeah,
that's the one little thing for me. That's a bit of an odd one. How do you send emails across time?
I mean, I get emails that I'm like, where the hell's that come from?
And then you realise it was just a scheduled send on your mailing list. This is from past Andy. It is possible. Scheduled send is a way of time traveling through email. There you go. Life coaching scheduled emails are like time travel.
Exactly.
I'd like you to leave now, please.
And then one day I was clearing out my spam folder and I found a video message I had apparently just emailed to myself. I must have realized that I didn't have long before that version of my life ceased to exist. I always felt I was living the wrong life. The life you stole from me. I want it back.
So Rudolph's like holding some kind of ray gun.
I like the future weapon.
Yeah.
Which begs the question of why didn't Zach bring one of those back?
I know. There's so many things you could sort of carry around.
Maybe not made by Nokia or ASICS or Peter Storm.
Yeah.
They don't travel. They don't time travel well.
Just one of those, like, they got it on Amazon as like one of those Chinese imports.
It's a wish gun, a wish ray gun.
Yeah, the time machine.
Time machine.
So he got rid of it because it was junk and Bob was insane.
I think that he probably did get rid of it. I think he probably got rid of all opportunity he had to follow that path.
And I don't think he believed that Bob was him.
Do you not?
No, I think
surely he must have realised at some point when he grew up looking exactly like Bob.
That's the question that I have as sort of my parting question is, at what point, if indeed he did he look in the mirror and think, shit,
I'm Bob.
I am Bob.
I think he had questions, but then when he'd heard what Bob had to say and he opened up that bag and saw what it was, he must have realized, because otherwise he wouldn't have devoted so much time and energy later on to undoing that timeline, because he must have known that he had to go back and see himself to undo that future. But he must have realized that he was being told the truth in order to affect things.
What, down the cancer timeline?
Yes. I think he must have, he would have gotten rid of that bag because he knew that that was his time travel future that he needed to not follow. And that to make sure he didn't, that needed to go. And so he did throw that away because he needed to make sure that he focused all of his energies into saving his mum and creating and going down the cancer timeline.
I suppose, and like at a human level, he could have just convinced himself that Bob wasn't him and like told himself that story and reinforced that story that he was just a mad person. That, I think if you allowed yourself to remember the fact that time travel existed, but you've got rid of its chances of existence by getting rid of the time machine, you've been visited by yourself from a future that doesn't now exist. And I think it would turn you a little bit mad.
It would, but he does seem to deal with it quite well.
That's what I mean. I think psychologically he's sort of compartmentalized things in a way.
Put some things in some boxes,
yeah.
In some bags under the bed.
Exactly, yeah. We come to the end and see that Rudolph appears to have won that little tussle in the kitchen. And we go sort of moving back into that scene that we've seen before with Helen and the coffee spilling, the holding her back, Zach on the bed, on his computer, the bird flying into the window, and nobody picks the bird up and it seems to just die, which is I imagine a metaphor for Helen at that point. She dies where she was supposed to die, according to the original line of things. And as you said earlier, it's actually quite a bleak ending at the level of everything we've just watched for the last half an hour hasn't happened.
Everything you've just seen is pointless.
None of it happened. Yeah, poor Helen.
Yeah.
Booked her smear test a little bit too late.
That's the real lesson. That and don't invent time travel. None of it works. None of it makes any sense.
Yeah. Don't invent time travel. Get tested for everything you possibly can.
At all times.
At all times.
If someone offers you like one of those screening things where you can just get tested for everything,
do it.
Do that.
Yeah.
Which brings us on to our sponsors this week. You can get 20% off using the code AQNIN9. Do you get that right?
Yeah. On
gettestedforeverything.com.
Yeah. And I just want to say, if you need your clicks, keep your clicks on.
I hate the clicks.
I hate the clicks, but if you feel like your life's unraveling and you need them to just make yourself feel a bit more in control of things,
center yourself.
Just use them. Embrace it. And if you have any thoughts on this episode or anything we've talked about, probably not time travel wise, because it is just like nobody has the right answers for that. It's just not a lot of
I'm not interested in your thoughts about time travel.
I mean, I've read things that people have written with a lot, and they've written with a lot of care and a lot of sort of thought about it, and it's like, but that still has massive flaws because it just does not work. So if you believe that you have the ultimate theory, you don't.
You are wrong.
Phil, you can send it, but like, I'm not going to read it.
Suspend disbelief.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite work. But
no.
Yeah.
But you can get in touch via email.
Here's a list of things Andy is happy to hear you write about. acquire9inside09@gmail.com or Twitter @AQNIN9.
No, if you really want to do time travel.
No, you can't go back on that now. You've made your feelings quite clear on this.
Could I forward it to you? Would you be interested?
It comes to the same account. Like, I don't know. We both read the same
can I
things.
mark it as unread and wait for you to read it?
Yes, you can.
You'd be interested in reading people's thoughts on time travel.
I wouldn't go that far. But I'm not going to actively tell them not to. Because this opens a slippery slope of other things I don't want to hear from people about.
Well, yeah.
There aren't any more.
All right. Well, yeah. Sadly, we'll be back next week for the final episode of Series 7. The sad part is the fact it's the final episode, not the fact that we're back.
You make up your own
For
mind.
some people.
Don't write in about that either.
All right. Have a good week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.